Welcome everyone to the 282nd Annual Meeting of the Library Company of Philadelphia. I am Bob Demento, President of the Board. Very pleased to have so many of our loyal members here with us this evening. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order and appoint as its chair Ms. Helen Weary, Secretary of the Board of Trustees.
Good evening. We have a quorum present. A quarter of the membership are present either in person or by proxy. And we have directors who have been nominated for 3-year terms. Their names are Rebecca Bushnell, Charles Landreth, Michael Mann, and Randall Miller. No additional names have been placed in nomination by the membership. Therefore, nominations are closed. May I have a show of hands of the shareholders present who did not return their proxy cards? Raise your hands if you are in favor of the slate. Are there any opposed? Okay. And the proxies will be added to those of you who have voted, and those directors are now elected. Now, Mr. Demento comes back to the podium to give the President's report.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. By now, I'm sure most of you have heard the momentous news that Library Company Director John Van Horn will be stepping down in 1 year's time. It will be impossible to find words to express my admiration for John's intellectual accomplishments, as well as the gratitude of the entire board for his devoted stewardship of this institution for almost 30 years. When John assumed leadership of the Library Company of Philadelphia in 1985, not much had changed in the world of research libraries for the past century or so. This was before everyone had a personal computer at their desks, and the Library Company had just acquired its first Wang word processor. Anybody remember those? Since then, of course, the digital revolution has transformed every aspect of how we conduct our affairs, research libraries included. John has presided over this dramatic transformation with a single-minded dedication to the needs of visitors, researchers, and members, and an unwavering reverence for the institution's history and mission. We all owe him an enormous debt of gratitude, and I'm just glad that he has given us a year to figure out how we can possibly express that appreciation sufficiently, and how we can ever replace him. 2012 was a momentous year for the Library Company in other ways as well. In July, we initiated a strategic planning process that has engaged the entire staff and board in thinking collectively about every aspect of our operations: research, collections, technology, audiences, programs, facilities, leadership, and financial support. I'm pleased to say that we will be finalizing a planning document within the next month. This plan will help guide us in the search for John's successor, enabling us to identify the right leader for the unique needs of this institution. The resulting search will be in the able hands of the Board of Trustees that continues to grow in expertise and leadership experience with the addition of 3 new members whom you have approved today. Rebecca W. Bushnell is School of Arts and Sciences Overseer's Professor of English at the University of Pennsylvania, and served as Dean of the School of Arts and Sciences from 2005 to 2013. Michael Mann is a founding partner of Mann Jensen Partners, LP, and Randall M. Miller is the William Dirk Warren 50 Sesquicentennial Chair and Professor of History at St. Joseph's University. We additionally welcome Charlie Landreth back for a second term on the board. Charlie chairs the board's governance committee and continues to provide leadership and expertise in finance, development, and governance. We are pleased to welcome back this distinguished slate of trustees. Additionally, longtime trustees Martha Morris and Hal Rosenberg have been named emeritus, having both completed three-year terms on the board. We could not be more delighted to have the benefit of their continued participation, guidance, and support. On a more somber note, I would like to remember the passing of emeritus trustee and former assistant librarian Gordon Marshall, a colleague dedicated to the library company for many years and one who will be sorely missed. I would also like to briefly mention a number of outstanding financial contributions received in 2012, which build on the base of vital support supplied by the general membership, enabling us to provide the services for which we are renowned in the research library world. The William Penn Foundation made a grant of $165,000 to support refurbishment of the library company's elevator. Newly introduced to us by trustee emeritus B. Garvin, Lawrence and Judy Cutler made a gift of $100,000 for acquisitions endowment. Mrs. Nancy and Ms. Theodate Coates contributed $100,000, continuing their tradition of generosity, which makes an enormous difference in our ability to maintain excellence in all our operations. Finally, an anonymous donor made a gift of $63,000 to support the detailed cataloging and digitization of Peter Collinson's History of London, about which you will be hearing more shortly. I would now like to present a brief sample of the many remarkable additions made to our collection in 2012 through both gift and purchase. The acquisition in 2012 of Peter Collinson's annotated and extra illustrated copy of William Maitland's History of London from 1739 was very exciting for this institution. A London Quaker cloth merchant, Collinson had a long and formative relationship with both the library company as our agent in London and with Benjamin Franklin as a publisher of his experiments and observations in electricity. The history is a stately folio volume lavishly illustrated with 25 plates. Collinson added manuscript notes and engravings from other sources from 1756 almost up to his death in 1768. He seems to have used the book as a sort of filing cabinet for printed ephemera about London and his recollections of how it had changed in his lifetime, meant perhaps as a memento for his family. Indeed, his descendants did add occasional notes into the 20th century. One of the many views set to Maitland's text show a set of old gates, Bishopsgate, in the London Wall, which Collinson noted as pulled down anno 1760. In 1765, another fire struck even closer to his house on Gracechurch Street, and he was able to make several corrections to this plan of the damaged properties. As some of Collinson's New World offspring, we could not be more pleased to have this volume back in the family. New family member Crystal Appia, curator of African American history, used funding provided by the Alfred M. Greenfield Foundation as part of its pilot grant for the program in African American history to acquire items that complement our remarkable collection in this subject area. The ribbon from approximately 1830 bears the portrait of Methodist clergyman Edward Johnson, who helped form the first colored Wesley Methodist Church. The ribbon was likely created for a beneficial society named in Johnson's honor. The anonymous author of this 1810 natural history pamphlet, Authentic History of the English West Indies, interspersed detailed descriptions of Caribbean flora and fauna with graphic commentary on the abuse of African slaves, as shown in this dramatic frontispiece, hoping to influence parliamentary legislation. In a fictional tale rendered an interesting narrative of the shipwreck and captivity of Dr. Archibald Thompson from 1809, the good doctor served as a physician on a British slave ship until a shipwreck and is captured by Arab slave traders. Thompson was dissuaded from escaping by the public impaling of another runaway slave gruesomely illustrated on this frontispiece. Bob the dog. Just wanted to make sure you're all paying attention. We'll see Bob again in a minute. Our impressive women's history collection also grew in 2012 through gift and purchase. In 2012, we added to our already strong collection of 18th century periodicals the entire run of a short-lived London periodical published specifically for women readers. The editor of the Royal Female Magazine expected his readers to be interested in the newest American discoveries. The volumes were purchased with funds donated by Davida Deutsch in honor of Lisa Baskin. Other editors of periodicals for women appealed to readers through their Christian values. This played from the May 1867 issue of Ladies' Repository, captioned, "Our Father, which art in heaven," had a special resonance, since many children had recently lost their fathers in the Civil War. Purchase of the 1867 volume was made possible by the Davida T. Deutsch Women's History Fund. Sentiment is also the currency of 19th century friendship albums, of which trustee Clarence Wolfe gave us 4 this year. 3 were owned by young women whom we could identify fairly easily, but Katie Pollock, owner of the album in which Julia Morowitzer contributed this watercolor, was harder to identify. Read more about the curatorial sleuthing that led to this identification in the annual report for 2012. Gifts to and purchases by the print department continue to exemplify the amazing range and versatility of those collections, and to be a lot of fun, but only if impaled runaways don't bother you. Trustee Emeritus William Helfand's extraordinary generosity continues with the gifts of large numbers of items from his popular medicine collection. His 2012 gift includes a wealth of material relating to patent medicines, pharmacists, and medical care. James Eyre, whose cathartic pills are advertised in this 1886 chromolithograph, also experienced great success with sales of Hair Vigor, Cherry Pectoral, Ague Care, and Sarsaparilla. I've tried the Hair Vigor, and I can attest to the fact that it does not work. Before its collapse in 1916, Philadelphia's Lubin Manufacturing Company grew to be one of the largest motion picture production companies in the world, owning a movie theater chain and production studios and holding numerous patents for recording and projecting equipment. The items pictured here are from a 1910 collection of 48 photographs of building exteriors, studio interiors, and film stills purchased in 2012. In 2012, we added to our noteworthy William Rao collection through both gift and purchase, including this gelatin silver photograph of a Philadelphia Railroad dining car interior given to us by David Long. The scrapbook that contained this print also included advertisement for Rao Studios, work done for the Pennsylvania Railroad, Philadelphia street scenes, and shots of his trusty dog, Bob. Thank you, Nicole. Finally, before I turn the podium over, I want to say another word about what 2013 will hold for us. We are faced with a once-in-a-generation transition in leadership at Ben Franklin's library, and we are both humbled by the importance of the task entrusted to us and exhilarated at the opportunity provided to help shape the future. As the membership of the library company, you are our most important stakeholders, and we look forward to having your involvement in this process. With that, I conclude the President's report, and we'll call on our Treasurer, Bob Christian, who will read the Treasurer's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bob Christian. I'm a trustee of the library, and I also serve as its treasurer. In that capacity, I'm pleased to report that the financial condition of the library is good. Our operating budget last year totaled $2.5 million, exclusive of any capital projects. On the revenue side, about $1.5 million was provided by the endowment, and $1 million came from other sources, primarily grants and gifts from foundations, government agencies, and individual donors. So you can see we are heavily dependent upon our endowment for financial support, which brings me to a second major responsibility which I bear, which is chairman of the Finance Committee of the Library Company of Philadelphia. In the committee's oversight of our endowment, we must walk a fine line. An investment policy that is too aggressive would have resulted in substantially stronger investment performance over the last 2 years, and we would have loved to have had that. However, such an approach would have been disastrous in the 2007-2009 time period. So our Finance Committee has designed, as I reported in the past, has designed an asset allocation for the endowment that places 3 years' worth of library company operating expenses in safe and secure investments. This is a slight change from where we were a year ago. A year ago, we had placed 4 years' worth of operating expenses into these safe investments, but it is the committee's feeling now that the investment marketplace is not as dangerous as it was a year or two ago, and as a result, we've become a little bit more aggressive with our endowment. This approach resulted in a 12% return last year. That is after all fees, all investment consultant fees, mutual fund fees, etc., about a 12% return. This return was slightly less than the average return of endowments our size, but our conservative approach has invested in much better returns over long time periods, say 3 and 5 years, with the added benefit of much lower overall volatility. At our current pace of spending, our budget will be withdrawing annually about 6% of principal from our endowment. In a financial market such as we currently have, this may seem conservative, since stocks especially have risen much faster than that over the last few years. But although we would like to think it, this pace is not likely to continue forever. In fact, if we use historical averages for financial asset price growth, our endowment would be expected to grow between 6 and 7% per year, discounting any contributions or withdrawals. It is our goal to get our budget and endowment to such a point as to the library needing to withdraw no more than 5%, pardon me, no more than 5% of our endowment annually to support the library's budget. The fun way to do this is to have the endowment grow by asset price appreciation and by contributions. There is also a not fun way to accomplish this, but I've run out of time. Thank you. I'd like to turn the podium now over to our director, John Van Wert.
Not fun, probably. Well, 2012 was yet another in our continuing series of busy and productive years for all of us here at 1314 Locust Street. Last year, we really geared up our digitization efforts. We completed our second digitization project in partnership with a commercial publisher. Alexander Street Press came on site and scanned more than 11,000 images relating to the Civil War for a product that will combine our materials with holdings at several other institutions. The scanned material includes envelopes, recruiting posters, photographs, playbills, song sheets, sheet music, political cartoons, portraits, and even comic valentines. That project hasn't yet been issued, but we expect it'll be hitting the market sometime this year. Secondly, the Redex Newsbank Company began to digitize more than 12,000 imprints in our African American history collection. There are now 2 scanning operations upstairs working simultaneously on this project. When it's finished, in several years' time, virtually every item in this collection will be word searchable in this product, representing millions of pages. The Adam Matthew Digital, a British company, also worked here, scanning some of our holdings relating to wheat and gold for its global commodities product. These ventures are in addition to our in-house scanning for our website and our online exhibitions and publications and other such uses. Our first exhibition last year, which actually opened late in 2011, was John A. McAllister's Civil War, the Philadelphia Homefront, curated by Phil Lapsansky. That was the last major project undertaken by Phil before he retired last year after 40 years on the library company staff. And following that exhibition, we opened Capitalism by Gaslight, the Shadow Economies of 19th Century America, which was guest curated by Wendy Wallison, one of our former staff members. In conjunction with that exhibition, we held a major conference on that theme that was co-sponsored with our friends at the McNeil Center for Early American Studies at Penn. You all know that we try to maintain a full schedule of various kinds of programs for our members and for the general public, and I would just like to mention a few of the ones we put on last year. We were very heavy on major conferences, which was a little unusual. Our program in Early American Economy and Society presented its annual conference on international investment in the early United States, early America. That was co-sponsored by the Rothschild Archive in London. And Program Director Kathy Matson is hoping to publish a volume of the papers that were presented at that conference. And then our program in African American History presented a conference called Making Freedom in the Atlantic World that featured two panel discussions. One with 4 scholars, and the other featuring several individuals who collect in African American history, either individually or for an institution. And then finally, we presented a conference called Before Madison Avenue, Advertising in Early America. That was a product of our visual culture program and our friends in Worcester, Massachusetts at the American Antiquarian Society. And one of our more entertaining programs last year was the annual Junto Gathering for members who support our acquisition fund. We had a very lively and informative panel discussion with 3 library company members who are also collectors as well as antiquarian booksellers. And that was Clarence Wolfe, William Reese, and Joe Falcone. Our fellowship program is now over 26 years old and continues to flourish. Last year, we awarded more than $200,000 in stipends to about 3 dozen scholars. And I think that's the first year where we broke $200,000 in the amount of support we were able to give to these visiting scholars who come to use the collections. Those funds come from several sources. We have some restricted endowments. Our program in Early American Economy and Society has part of its endowment is set aside for fellowships. We also have the Albert M. Greenfield Foundation Dissertation Fellowship, which is an endowment. We get renewable grants, such as the support we get from the National Endowment for the Humanities for postdoctoral fellowships. And then we get annual gifts that enable us to award fellowships in particular fields. For instance, there's the Reese Company Fellowship in History of the Book and Bibliography, and we have 2 William H. Helfand fellowships, one in early American medicine and science, and the other in visual culture. And then also last year we completed the 4th year of a program of fellowships in early American literature and material texts that we're offering in conjunction with our friends at the McNeil Center in a program funded by the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation. Our former list of fellows now approaches 700. And collectively, they've published well over 200 books based, at least in part, on the research that they've done here at the Library Company. Speaking of publications, several appeared last year with our imprint. Publishing books is one of the best ways that we can make a permanent, tangible contribution to knowledge and also spread word of our collections and programs to the wider world. So I want to share these with you. Quite proud of them. Early African American Print Culture was published by the University of Pennsylvania Press with the Library Company, and this grew out of a conference we did in 2010 that was co-sponsored by the McNeil Center and Temple. Last year we entered into a co-publishing arrangement with the University of Georgia Press. We're now co-sponsoring a series that they've been running for a number of years called Race in the Atlantic World, 1700 to 1900. And in 2012, they actually issued 3 titles in that series that carry that joint imprint. Also last year, I mentioned Phil Lapsansky retired after 40 years. We published a fest trip for him where we solicited contributions from many scholars who have passed through the reading room here over the course of Phil's tenure. and more than 50 of them responded, which was really quite wonderful. And we asked them each to write a short piece about a particular thing in the collection, whether it was a book or a print or a pamphlet or an artifact of some kind, that was influential in their own scholarship, and that ideally would have something to do with Phil, something he may have brought to their attention or discussed with them. So this came out in the middle of last year on the occasion of Phil's retirement. And finally, this fabulous book, Philadelphia on Stone, Commercial Lithography in Philadelphia, 1828 to 1878. You've been hearing about this project for a number of years. It was a multi-year project, multifaceted, and it concluded over a year ago, but it took a while for the book to come out. This was issued by Penn State Press in collaboration with the library company. It was edited by Erica Piola, and it's an absolutely gorgeous book. We had a publication party for it last year, and I'm sure many of you were here for that occasion. I'll leave it up here in case you might want to take a look at it. So congratulations to Erica, and I also want to mention that it was recently awarded the Newman Award of the American Historical Print Collectors Society for the best book given in the field of American 18th and 19th century prints. The award came with a check for $1,000, which was payable to the library company, not to Erica, unfortunately. So Erica is now gladly spending it on new acquisitions for the print department. We've been engaged in this multi-year project to keep this almost 50-year-old building up to snuff. Many of its systems are aging and need refurbishing, if not replacing. And with the support of a $1 million capital grant from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, we've been engaged in this effort. Last year, with that grant and the additional support of the McLean Contributionship, we were able to install gas boilers in this building that allow us to generate our own steam for heat and humidification. And they were up and running for the better part of a year, and the results are now in, and the project did meet its target of saving us about $50,000 a year in our utility costs. So that's really very significant. So every year I always say that all these accomplishments couldn't have been possible without the work of our very dedicated and talented staff and our very dedicated and talented board of trustees, and with the generous support of you, our shareholders and members. We are truly grateful for that support. One of the distinguishing qualities of our staff is that we tend to settle in here for a very long time. There's just something about being in a library company that makes people want to stay. Inspires great loyalty and dedication. Even with Phil no longer on the staff and giving up his 40-year pride of place, we still have on the staff members who have 32 years of service, 30 years, 28, 25, and several more with 10, 15, and 20 years of service. And this is really quite extraordinary. I don't think you'd find a record like this at any other institution. So now I'd like to recognize 5 of our staff members who, over the last year, did reach important milestones. They are Jim Green, our librarian, who's been here for 30 years. Al DeLasta, our Chief of Maintenance and Security, has been here 25 years. Sarah Weatherwax, our Curator of Prints and Photographs, has been here 20 years. And we have 2 15-year members. Associate Curator of Prints and Photographs, Erica Piola, whom I just mentioned in reference to this book, and our IT Manager and Graphic Designer, Nicole Scalessa. That's 105 years. So I would like them each to come up and receive a gift card that we have for them. And I also want to mention something else we're going to do for Jim and Sarah. We will designate a significant acquisition from this year of a book and a print in their honor. And the catalog record online and the book plate and identification mark in these acquisitions will also indicate that information. So it'll be kind of a permanent record of what they've meant to us over the years. So all 5 of you know. Just a
Bubble
little.
It's a little taller. Smile.
So thank you. So that concludes the report of the director, and I'll now turn the meeting back over to our secretary.
We're almost done. My next task is to ask if there is any business from the floor. Does anyone have anything they'd like to bring up or ask? Okay, done. I need a motion to adjourn the annual meeting.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? The meeting is adjourned.